21 is 63. Is the answer. Let's move on. We are now going to talk about adding and subtracting fractions. A very important skill. Most often students have difficulty doing. So I'm going to develop a method for you. I want you to watch this and understand it and practice this over and over again. Do it many, many times. You see, algebra is learned by doing, not just by listening or by reading. You've got to do them over and over again. Tell me, what is the value of 3 over 6 plus 2 over 6? Well, that's very simple. If you want to go back to your pizza example, what it means is you divide one pizza into 6 parts. First, eat 3 of them. You eat 3 pieces out of 6. Then you go back and eat 2 more pieces out of 6. That means you have eaten 5 pieces out of 6. Is that right? So, when the denominators are the same, what all you need to do is add the numerators and use the same denominator. Is that right? You know it. So 3 over 6 plus 2 over 6, our denominator will remain 6. And the numerator is the sum of the two. So 3 over 6 plus 2 over 6 is 3 plus 2 over 6. You see? Adding 3 and then eating 3 pieces out of 6. And then eating another 2 pieces out of 6 is the same as adding 5 pieces out of 6. And this 6 is called the common denominator. You see? The common denominator is 6. And that is our denominator for the answer. And then the numerator is obtained by adding the 2 numerators. That's what we will practice in adding fractions. Alright? Let's move on. So that will be 5 over 6. Okay. Let's now add 7 over 10 plus 5 over 10. Alright, the first thing to do is, what is the common denominator? What is the common denominator? Well, both have denominator 10, so 10 itself is the common denominator. So, in adding this, we first write that common denominator. This is the method I want you to practice for every problem. So, 7 over 10 plus 5 over 10 equal to. Write that common denominator with that division, the sign. What does this stand for? Well, that is what separates the numerator from the denominator, and we call it divided by. Is that right? And put that sign there. We now want our numerator. How do we construct our numerator? Well, what all we need to do here is add our numerators. So, we got the common denominator 10, and then simply add the numerators. What is our answer? The answer is 7 plus 5 is 12 over 10. Well, is this an answer? Well, no. Why not? This is not in the lowest terms. How do we write this in the lowest terms? 12 can be written as 2 times 6. And 10 can be written as 2 times 5. And 2 and 2 goes. So we get 6 over 5. Well, 6 over 5 is an improper fraction. Write that using mixed numbers. How would that be? You can take 1 5 out of 6 and remains 1. It will be 1 and 1 out of 5. Okay, I want you to practice this many, many times. How about this? 7 out of 10 minus 5 out of 10. So the only difference here is, in place of the adding, we have now subtracted. And the only difference there is, you have the common denominator as before. In place of adding the numerators, you have subtracting the denominators. The numerator is now 7 minus 5. In other words, whatever sign we have here, that is what we will use on the numerator. So the answer there is 2 out of 10. Can you tell me what that is in the simplest form? Well, 2 is 2 times 1, and 10 is 2 times 5. And of course the 2 and 2 cancelled, leaving us with the answer 1 over 5. Okay, let's now talk about least common denominator. Some of you know. Let's practice this. When the denominators are not the same, you see, when the denominators are the same, there is no problem finding the common denominator. But if the denominators are not the same, then we have a problem. Well, we need to find a common denominator. For example, let's add 3 over 8 plus 5 over 12. Well, the first denominator is 8. The second denominator is 12. They are not the same. So the question is, what is the common denominator here? Well, we attempt to make the denominators the same number. We need to get the same number for both denominators. Then we can add these quickly. Now, what should be that number? You know that multiplying a fraction on the numerator and on the denominator by the same number will not make any difference. So we need to find that number in here. To answer that question, we first factor both denominators. Well, our first denominator is 8. And you have no trouble factoring 8 as 2 times 2 times 2. Is that right? Now, what was our second denominator? You remember? It was 12. How do you factor 12? 12 is 2 times 2 times 3. I think that will be okay for you. Is that right? Now, how do we pick a number that can be divided by 8 and also divided by 12? We are looking for a common denominator. And that common denominator should be a number that can be divided by 8 and also divided by 12. So to begin, what we're going to do is pick all the factors of the first number. We begin by picking all the factors of the first number. That will be 2 times 2 times 2. Our common denominator must contain all the factors of the first number. And now you come to the second number. From the second number, we pick only those factors which are not already picked in the first number. For example, you come and say, this 2. Do you need that 2? Well, the answer is no, I have picked a 2 from the first number. We now go to the second 2. Do we need that 2? No, we have also picked a second 2. So we don't need these 2s. But do we need that 3? Yes, because no 3 has been picked already. That means we need to pick that 3. That means our common denominator now should be 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. And what is that equal to? 24. You can see 24 can be divided by 8. And 24 can also be divided by 12. Therefore, this is called the lowest number. You see, that is the lowest number that can be divided by both 8 and 12. And for that reason, we actually call it the lowest common denominator. That's the lowest possible number that can be your common denominator. So 24 is the smallest number that can be divided by both 8 and 12. And for that reason, we call it the lowest common denominator, or LCD. So our first task in adding or subtracting fractions is to find the LCD, lowest common denominator. And what's the method? Factor the first denominator, factor the second denominator, and if you have a third one, factor that also. Then pick factors. Pick all the factors of the first number, and then pick factors from the remaining without repeating. Now we will practice this more as we move on. Alright, how do we use the LCD? Well,